Well, good evening. This is Matt Disworth with Life's Wealth Development Group, and coming back to you with another podcast. Today I'm talking with Brian Hayes. Brian is a personal trainer and recently transitioned Army officer, and I think he'll have a wealth of knowledge for people out there that are either getting ready to transition out of the military or have recently transitioned and are kind of looking for some direction. Brian, how you doing tonight?
I'm doing great. How are you doing, Matt?
Oh, I'm doing awesome. Thank you very much. And first, I just want to say I appreciate your time. I know it's valuable. I know you had a long day today, and I appreciate taking the time to, to let me ask you some questions and, find some things that you've done through your transitioning or that you're doing now that may help other people. So I appreciate that. And anybody listening, I'm pretty sure they would appreciate it too.
You're very welcome. Anything to help another veteran, and if anybody gets anything out of this, then it's well worth it.
Awesome. Yeah. Again, that's much appreciated. I'll just go ahead and start here. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, about your background, and kind of what you're doing now after the Army, and how you got into that.
Well, I joined the Army straight out of high school, so that was my first job, and for a long time my only job. I got out a couple of years ago, and at the time I thought I was gonna open up my own business, and I also started running. I started running a lot. And it's strange because you run a lot in the military anyway, and you're exercising all the time. But I was at a point where I didn't have to. I was running on my own. I was doing my exercise on my own. The job that I had at the time, it was a little different than most jobs. So we were kind of left on our own to exercise, and I started enjoying it, and so I did it some more, and that just gradually. I evolved into really enjoying weightlifting and running and exercising, and that naturally led to learning more and more about exercise, more about physiology, more about nutrition, and just decided to go, instead of opening my own business, go the route of being a personal trainer.
Okay. All right. Well, that sounds interesting because it's something before maybe you were forced to do, so it had a different, maybe a different perspective then, and then once you were able to kind of do that on your own, sounds like you blossomed into something that you really enjoy and appreciate.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that's cool. Now, how long were you in the Army?
I was active duty for 12 years.
12 years, okay. 12 years. All right. So you're into personal training now, you said, and do you have any specialties in personal training, like any special certifications that you've worked on, or is it a general kind of a degree? Because I've heard of different kinds. Some people I know are getting an associate's degree that also includes their personal training certificates, and others just get the certificate. Kind of, which route did you go?
I just went to get my certificate. I did it through an online course and paid for it myself. The only other thing I had to do is get my CPR certification.
CPR, okay. And which, if you don't mind, if you can, which certification did you go ahead and get?
Oh, for personal training?
Yes.
Basically that's it. That's what it's called, is a personal certified personal trainer. There's a number of different organizations that offer it. I think one of the more widely recognized ones are ACE, the acronym ACE. NASM is another organization. I got mine through ISSA.
Okay, yeah, I've heard of that one too. I'd never heard of NASM though, so that's an interesting one. Okay, so and about how long did that take to get that kind of certificate?
Well, they're self-paced, so I think they give you up to a couple months to get it done. and it doesn't take that long.
Okay.
I don't remember how long it took me.
Okay, so it's basically it's an online course. You kind of log in, do what you need to do, and
Right.
as you complete each one, that logs in. Okay. And so you got the general personal training thing, and are you interested in narrowing that down at a later point for yourself to kind of like get into a niche kind of market, nutrition, or specifically any kind of personal training that you're interested in doing?
Well, I actually enjoy. I'm at a point now where I'm really exploring nutrition and the biology behind it and the science behind it. So I could easily see myself going for a nutritionist license or a dietitian license, which would involve formal schooling. But for now, to maintain my certification, I have to take continuing education credits, and there's all kinds of different things that you can do for that. There's short online classes that you can take for supplementation. There's other certifications that you can get to specialize in youth fitness training, senior citizen fitness training. There's all kinds of different specialized areas that you can continue to get education on.
Wow, but that's a requirement for you. So you just kind of cherry pick what you want to do, and that's how it probably kind of specializes.
Right.
Okay. Yeah, that sounds interesting. There's a lot of people going into that field too. Do you see more and more as you go? Do you meet more and more people that are doing that kind of course, or doing the certificates in personal fitness? Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Okay. All right. What about since you've recently transitioned, right? You said a few years ago.
Right.
You transitioned recently, so is there anything that you would like to go back in time and tell yourself, 1 year prior to that transition, or whatever time you want to pick? Is there anything that you would like to tell yourself that you should do or shouldn't do before you transition or as you're transitioning? Kind of like a lesson learned that you could go back and tell yourself.
Well, yeah. At any point in my life, I would have grabbed myself by the neck and dragged myself to an AA meeting, because I am an alcoholic, and I did not know it before I transitioned. I'm sober really the whole time I was married. I got sober the day I got married. I stopped drinking cold turkey, and that was a couple of years before I got out of the military. So I never in a million years would have thought I would have gotten divorced. Never would have imagined that relationship would have fallen apart, but it did. And the alcoholic mind is a great deceiver, and it can tell you exactly what you want to hear. So I told myself all kinds of things after I got out of the military. I'd been out of the military for 2 years, and I was married for 5 years, sober for all of it. And it didn't take long after I got divorced that my mind was telling me, you're not an alcoholic. You've never really had a chance to drink socially. You were always in the military. They were always making you drink all the time. You don't know how you would act now that you're out of the military. You can handle it. Things like that. So I started drinking again, and by this time my son's 4 years old, and I'm making really bad decisions, and I finally found myself in an AA meeting, and I finally got the help that I needed. And I've been sober for almost 9 months now. But as I was getting out of the military, I had been sober for 2 years and never thought I would drink again. And I thought, and people told me, well, you still need to go do the 12 steps. I said, well, I don't need to. I've been sober for 2 years. I'm good. I got this. And they're like, no, you don't get it. And I didn't. And I don't even know if me from the future coming back and telling me I needed to go to an AA meeting would have even let it sink in. But it's hard to understand until you go through it. It's just you have to go through. There's things you have to do. And forgiveness is one of them. And recognizing a higher power is another one. And I've been not spiritual for a long time. So that was a difficult part, but it all works together. And that for anyone listening to this, if they've had this problem or if they think they have this problem, there is help. There is light at the end of the tunnel. There is hope, and but you have to go through the steps. You have to do it sincerely.
Right. Okay. Now, is that AA? Is that something that somebody could just go to if they, they say, hey, I think I might have trouble, or I may be in that same situation. Can they just find an AA meeting and go to that, or is that something they have to sign up for?
Yeah, that's a great question, because there were times when I was like, well, and let's backtrack a little. The Army, has substance abuse programs, but especially for someone like me, I was a military intelligence officer. I had a top secret security clearance. I had a reputation, and I had an ego. And going to any of these substance abuse programs, there's so much fear that all that's going to go away. You lose your security clearance, that the wrong person is going to find out, and it just didn't work. So there's a lot of times that I thought about AA. I was like, well, instead of the Army programs, maybe I can find an AA meeting, and I didn't know where to begin. And this was a long time ago, before a lot of organizations were publishing web pages and getting on the internet. So your resource was the phone book, and I just never found an AA meeting. I just never was able to find a place. But nowadays, I think, how did I find it? I think I just looked it up on the internet. I searched for Alcoholics Anonymous in Knoxville, and I found a bunch of different places. But usually, almost every church has a meeting, a group that meets there. And if they don't, they know where you can find one. So if you're not going to church, you can walk into any church and ask them when their AA meetings meet. And if they don't have any meetings at that church, they'll know where to find one.
Okay. Yeah, what I'll do too, I'll do a little research, and I'll put that on the show notes there, a link to maybe AA resources, so that if somebody's listening and they want to find it quick, they can have that right there. Yeah,
there's a national organization. I think they're headquartered out in New York. So they have a web page that you can always go to, that anybody can go to and look up what organizations are in their area. But to answer your original question, no, you don't need to register at all. The only requirement to attend an AA meeting is to have a desire to quit drinking.
Okay. So they make it pretty easy for you. And does it cost you anything money wise? So
no,
somebody who's interested, they need to take money.
It costs anything.
Okay. All right. Well, hey, thank you for sharing that personal story like that. Appreciate that. And, I'm sure that people that may be considering something like that hear that other people also go through the same things. It's always better in numbers. Because I think a lot of times people think they're the only ones with certain troubles, or the only ones going through some kind of event in their life. So to hear that somebody else has gone through it or is going through it, maybe that'll give them some light, and they can, reach out for the help they need. So I appreciate you sharing that.
Oh, you're welcome. It's for the longest time, it was really hard for me to talk about, because it's, in the military, that's one of the great sins that you can do is get a DUI or get kicked out for anything like that, and you're considered weak if you can't handle your alcohol. So it was a big hit on my ego for a long time, and now that I've got the help that I need, I've forgiven myself for a lot of things, and part of recovery is helping others.
Okay. Yeah, that's awesome. Thank you for sharing. I'm glad that you found what you needed to as well. And I see on the bases here, the Navy base has a sign out front, and it says 0 DUIs this month, 67 DUIs this year, or just some numbers up there. But every so often they, hey, we have 1 DUI, or I think actually sometimes they go by days too. They say, 30 days since the last DUI on base, or something to that effect. You remember seeing those kind of signs too?
Oh yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, appreciate it. And do you have anything else to add on that before I go on to the next question?
No, I mean, if I would love to be a resource for your listeners. So if anybody is out there and needs someone to talk to, then I hope that if they don't turn to me, they turn to somebody.
Okay. That's awesome. And we'll put a way to contact you there in the show notes too. And whatever the best way is to get a hold of you, we'll put that up for everybody to see that and be able to contact you. So thanks for that. So I got another question. So I wanted to talk about, I like books, something that I didn't actually learn about for a long time. And I didn't listen to the people that say books have a lot of information in there. One of them was my dad. He used to always try and get me to read, and I didn't figure he knew what he was talking about. Then I got into some audio books probably about 10 years ago, maybe a little bit longer now, about 10 or 11 years ago. And I found out there is actually a lot of information in there, and I am trying now to catch up on all the information I could have had over all those years. So I'd like to ask about books, and like what books have you given away the most? Or if not given away, what books have influenced you in your life the most?
There's a book that I got through my graduate class called Leadership and Self-Deception. And that one really helped me. It's interesting, the title is called Leadership and Self-Deception, but it does not, it has a much broader reach than just leadership, the lessons that the book teaches, because it's really about interdependence with one another and communicating with people. It applies to leadership, but it applies to relationships overall. And we find ourselves in these situations all the time where, and one of the examples in the book is a man and a woman and his wife in bed at night, and the baby starts crying. And the man thinks, his first thought is, oh, we need to do something for the baby. And then he rationalizes this, well, I've gotten up every night this night. I'll let her take this one. And I'm going to go back to sleep because I'm real tired, and I've got a meeting in the morning, so I'm just going to let her take this one. And so she's laying there doing the same thing, and absolutely not a word said between the two. Yet for the next week, they're furious at each other. And one of the insights of the book is this self-deception, and there's a name for it. There's a lot of terms in the book, interesting terms, but this self-deception where we rationalize these things where we know what the right thing to do was. He knew exactly what the right thing to do was. The first thought he had, go get up and tend to the child. Then he rationalized why he didn't have to do that. And we have those types of interactions all the time, every day, throughout the day, and this book gives a lot of different techniques to identify when it happens and to handle it when it happens to you, with you, and to others and with others. So it's just really interesting. And in the military, as an officer, you're considered a leader, and there's so many things that I did not know about leadership after leaving the military after 12 years, and a lot of lessons that I learned. One of my first jobs out of military was retail, and I was put in leadership position there, where in the military you have you have unlimited resources, especially during peacetime, but even during wartime, you've got. I mean, the military, the doctrine is you have a 3-to-1 ratio for any force you're fighting, so you're always going to outnumber your enemy 3-to-1, and so even when you're fighting an enemy, you have these unlimited resources. If you need to take out the trash, well, you've got 3 guys fighting over who's going to take the trash out. Well, in retail, it's the opposite. Retail's the other side of that, where they're trying to squeeze 3 times the work out of every one person because it's the bottom line. Oh, wow. So as a leader or as a manager in retail, you learn very quickly the difference between leadership and management. It's easy to get a checklist and to tell people to do things and check those things off, but it's a real challenge to motivate people to go above and beyond that and to enjoy doing it. So that was one book of a number of readings that we got in my graduate program that really opened my eyes to the world of leadership, the art of leadership.
Yeah, what you just said too is that's an amazing thing for people transitioning to hear on the type of differences that are, coming out of the military is one thing, but many people probably think that everything is exactly the same as it is in the military out in the civilian sector. So that's what you just talked about there is awesome gold nugget for somebody coming out, I would think. So it'd probably be a great book for them to check out.
Yeah, that and really having an open mind and being open to new things, because I think in a lot of times in the military there's a machismo, and we're kind of, appearances mean a lot, so you kind of get into this protective zone that, well, I know what I'm doing, and I got this, I can handle it. And sometimes you just kind of have to humble yourself and say, this is retail. I don't know what it is. I'm going to let the people who do retail show me, and I'm going to learn from them. So transitioning, you kind of have to remember that unless you're that guy, and there's many of them and they just transition over into the same office they left, but now they're a civilian. Yeah. You kind of have to keep an open mind and say, all right, if I'm an engineer in the Army and I'm transitioning over to the civilian engineer corps or a technological firm, I'm going to the business world is a lot different than the military. The business world is also very similar to the military, but it's really important to keep an open mind and humble yourself.
Right. Yeah, that's awesome. That's great advice for people. Is that humbling, learning to let other people help and learn from other people. So awesome. Any other books that you have in mind or anything like that?
Well, we call it the big book in Alcoholics Anonymous, but it's basically the 12 steps.
Oh, okay. I've seen that one. The big book, the big blue book?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much on that, too. That's, like I said, I think that one piece you put in there about, the humbling piece, and then also that leadership is different. I liked how you put those ratios in there. That presented a great picture for me, which leads me to my next question would be, if you had a chance to put up a billboard anywhere in the world, where would you put that billboard, and what would it say?
And oh man, I really have no idea. I don't, I really don't, I don't like billboards because they're air pollution. So the thought of putting one up, I don't really like it. It really eyesores.
Okay. That's understandable. That's why I ask it, just to see kind of what people think out there. So I'll switch the question around a little bit and say, if you could say one thing to the listeners, anybody that's listening to this right now, what would be one thing you would want to tell them that might fit, within maybe 2 or 3 sentences?
Choose happiness.
Choose happiness?
Choose happiness. There's a lot of people don't realize that they have control over their emotions.
Right.
So, I mean, you can choose to be angry with things, or you can choose to be happy with them. But you're going to enjoy your life a lot more if you choose to be happy.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, a lot of people get stuck in the ruts and think that they have to act one way or another, and they choose which seems to be the hardest route to me, but a lot of times I guess for some people it's the easiest route, just to stay unhappy, because then the expectation stays low, I guess. So yeah, that's all.
The problem is
go ahead,
when people don't have control over their emotions, they compensate in other ways in their life.
Yeah, that's very true. Yep. Trying to find the happiness in other areas, yeah. Artificial happiness or something like that.
Artificial happiness and artificial control. When you don't have control over your emotions, you feel like you lose control, so you try to control other things in your life.
Oh, I see, yeah. Okay. Good, I like that. Choose happiness, short and simple, and right to the point. So that's cool. That's all the questions I have right now. Just give you the last minute to, any closing thoughts that you have, or anything that you maybe, on top of that, choose happiness, that you'd like to leave the listeners with. And then I'll get some contact information from you. So the floor is yours if you want it.
The only other thing I have to say is that there are 22 veterans that die every single day because of suicide. There's too many that we didn't bring home. It's not right that the ones that we did bring home are killing themselves. If anyone like that is listening to this, I want them to know that there is light at the end of the tunnel. There is hope. Things can get better. Please choose happiness.
All right. Yeah, that's excellent. Anybody listening out there, listen to that. You got plenty of resources available to you, and this is specifically one with the contact information that'll be on here. Contacting either Brian or myself, or if not, then somebody nearby. So, yeah, thanks, Brian. I appreciate your time again. It's very valuable, and you've given us your time and lots of great information that is definitely going to be useful to people as they transition, or maybe they've already transitioned and are on their way out. So I appreciate it, and that's all I have tonight. And I would love to do maybe a follow-on down the road, in a few months, and just see where you're at, and see what else you've been up to. If that would be all right with you.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Okay. So, I appreciate it again. Again, my name is Matt Disworth, and this is Life's Wealth Development Group. You can contact me through matt.disworth@gmail.com, or my phone number 970-366-7205. And Brian, I forgot to ask you about contact information for yourself there. what's the best way for people to get a hold of you if they're listening to this and maybe want to get more information about AA meetings or maybe a little bit about your fitness and training opportunities? How can they get a hold of you?
Best way is check me out on Facebook at bhayesfitness.com.
bhayesfitness.com. All right, on Facebook. All right, well, thank you very much, Brian, again, and have a great night. All the listeners out there, thanks for your valuable time and taking time to listen to this, and I'm sure you got something out of this. Leave some comments below if you would like to ask any other questions or find out more information. Thanks again. Have a great night. Thanks, Brian.
Thanks, Matt.